Hello，你好，欢迎回来。Welcome back to Wisdom Wednesday on December 10, 2020. The last two episodes we have talked about the first two animals that make up the five sacred immortals, five animal immortals commonly worshipped in northern China. And even today, there are a lot of farmers and ranchers and hunters that worship these um, more or less pagan or shamanistic deities. We have mentioned the fox, which was the highest ranking of these, and then the Siberian weasel. In Mandarin, these are the Hu Xian, meaning the fox, immortal, uh, and the Huang Xian, the yellow, immortal. I'm not quite sure if the Siberian weasels are yellow in coloration, but they are commonly referred to as yellow uh, rat wolf or yellow mouse wolf. So, yeah, I'm just going to assume that they are yellow. So today we're going to look at the third animal on this list. The third animal on this list of five animals that are commonly worshipped as gods or demigods or deities, and sometimes demonic uh, entities by Chinese people. The one I'm going to show you guys today is called Bai Xian, Bai Xian, which loosely translates as the white immortal. And no, I'm not talking about a white or Caucasian person. Uh, yeah, although to a lot of Chinese people, to my great annoyance, a lot of Chinese people seem to think that if a person is white or just a little bit pale in coloration, he or she is just about as good as God. But that's another topic for another day. I don't really want to get into that today. So, but Bai Xian, no, it's not a white guy or white lady. Bai Xian, the white immortal, is referring to a cute little animal that a lot of people today keep at home as their pets. It is the hedgehog. The hedgehog, in Mandarin, we call them 刺猬, Cheway, 刺猬, which loosely would translate as uh, thorny guard, 刺猬. Very uh, good description of a hedgehog when you think about it. Now, the hedgehog have had a lot of uh, representations in various cultures throughout history. In ancient Egypt, people already started to worship hedgehogs, and the hedgehog was often depicted on uh, paintings and drawings, and quite often in little sculpted charms that people would wear on their bracelet. People in ancient Egypt already believed that the hedgehog would ward off evil spirits. In Mongolia, the hedgehog has somewhat of a trickster reputation. Mongolians believe that hedgehogs are not very honest. Why? Because they say the hedgehog always walks with its head down and you can never see its face. So that's the way a dishonest person would walk, a trickster would walk, head down, eyes low to the ground. Come on, guys. The hedgehog can't help it. That's just that's the way it's made. Biologically, that's how it's going to walk. But anyway, who am I to make fun of Mongolian people's belief, eh? So, Mongolian believe that hedgehogs are tricksters because they're dishonest, because they walk low to the ground with their head down and face hidden. But at the same time, a lot of Mongolian people believe that if you take the pelt uh, skin, hide, what would you call the skin of a hedgehog? Uh, if you take the skin of a hedgehog and hang it on the flap of your tent or the doorway of your house, it will keep away evil spirits. Throughout the Middle Ages, the European people, particularly the British and the Irish people, had a more disfavored view of hedgehogs. They believed hedgehogs were nothing but pests. They were evil spirits on the same uh, level as the leprechauns and goblins. These thorny little buggers come out in the middle of the night and steal milk from the cow, and they'll steal eggs from the chicken coop. Now, while it is possible that hedgehogs can uh, suckle milk from the cow's teat in the middle of the night, a tiny little hedgehog really wouldn't be drinking that much. And while it is also true that there were instances where the hedgehog had taken eggs, but for the most part, a hedgehog would only go after an egg if that egg is already damaged, because a hedgehog doesn't have enough strength to crack open the shell of an egg that is not already cracked. So in this case, the hedgehog's bad reputation was a little bit uh, mismanaged. They were not deserved. Circling back to China, especially northeastern China, the hedgehog stand mighty and high, up there with the five immortals, worshipped by hunters and farmers and ranchers for thousands and thousands of years. Commonly, it is believed that the Baixian, the hedgehog immortal, the white immortal, is an immortal that governs uh, medical matters, health, excuse me, it governs health and well-being of your body. Now, why did the Egyptian and the Mongolians and then the Chinese all believe that the hedgehog is instrumental in keeping away evil spirits, evil forces, and can keep you healthy? This probably derived from a very basic fact that hedgehogs are one of the few animals that constantly prey upon snakes. No matter if it's poisonous snake, non-poisonous snake, hedgehogs love them. So we can just imagine that in the old days, where there's no anti-venom in the hospital, and if you get bitten by a snake, most likely, especially if it was a poisonous snake, most likely you were going to die. Now, snake was a big deal. So having this little animal around that is going to prey upon snakes will keep your family healthy, aka keep away evil fortune, evil spirits. After all, not everyone could afford a mongoose. As an immortal, the hedgehog is one of the most shy and tend to keep to themselves. Unlike the fox and the weasel, both are known to interact with human beings on a large scale, sometimes for good, sometimes for evil. For the most part, Bai Xian, the hedgehog, will keep to himself or herself, and only when they are provoked is when they are going to lash out and do something very unpleasant to people that come into their domain. This is also one of the reasons why out of the five immortals, the legend of Bai Xian is almost non-existent. Um, when I was growing up, I maybe heard like two stories about hedgehogs, while there was hundreds and thousands of stories about the fox. Excuse me, it's just a dry throat. I don't have COVID-19 or anything. Don't worry. Um, and there were hundreds and thousands of stories about weasel, and then tens of hundreds of stories about the other immortals. But as far as hedgehog, it's really rare to hear a legend or story about a hedgehog immortal, the Bai Xian, interacting with people. Before I started today's video, I even sat down and did a really brief Google search. And even there, I couldn't really turn up any legend other than this very interesting, personal, and I say quote unquote true story from a Chinese guy that's been posted on the internet. And I'm going to relate this story to you. What strikes me as interesting in this story is, unlike a lot of our immortal god demon stories that tend to have happened centuries ago, this story actually happened relatively recently, about 20 years, 30 years ago, in a rural part of China where there's a lot of poor country folks, very little technology, very little transportation. And yes, despite being very rich, very powerful, China is really big, and there are a lot of parts of China where people still live in a very old-fashioned, very minimum kind of condition, such as in the case of uh, the this where this story took place. Now, this story was translated from a guy who didn't write English at all. So the translation, when I read it, was really, really rough. So I organized it a little bit, and I'm going to present it to you in as coherent a way as possible. So if you have seen the same story and you say, "Oh no, that's not what it said," well, excuse me, you tell me what it said then. The story goes, in rural northeastern China in the late 1980s, during one very hot, very boring, very dry summer vacation. Now, unlike city kids, country kids didn't really enjoy summer vacation as much in rural China. Reason being, for city kids, if you have a summer vacation, that means you are free to go and play and go on trips and go to visit your relatives and so on and so on. For country folk, summer vacation just means you stay home and do more chore around the homestead or the farm. So it really wasn't all that fun. One very hot afternoon, three teenage kids decided to finish their chore early and went out hunting for frogs and other little animals that they could add to the stew pot. The three little kids was Huang, Kay, and Shi. Now this story was written by Huang, who is now in his uh, 40s and has suffered nothing but bad fortune and illness for almost all his life. But where this story took place, Huang was only about 13 years old, and he's out with his little friend Kay and Shi. Like I said, they went out hunting for frogs, squirrels, anything they could add to the stew pot because these were poor families that generally didn't have a lot of beef or pork or chicken. That so it is a definite treat when they could find something in the wilderness to add to the dinner table. While they were walking in the woods, they split up, and pretty soon Huang and Shi heard Kay shouting excitedly. When they found Kay, uh, he was crouched down beside a fallen log, and there was a big hollow by this fallen log. In this hollow was a big, fat hedgehog. "Hey, this is great," said Shi. This thing is so much better than frog and squirrel. Let's take it home and butcher it, and we can each take part of it home. We can split it up, literally, and we can all have some meat for our dinner. Not knowing any better, the other kids agreed. So they killed the hedgehog, uh, divided it up, and took their own portion home to their family. When Huang's old grandmother saw what he brought home, she flipped out. She lashed him with a bamboo cane, and she cried, and she told him, "You do not kill one of the five sacred animals. This is just not done. Oh God, you are going to die." The rest of the family thought she was just superstitious and an old demented old lady. But that very night, Juan was sick. He was struck with a fever that was so high that it made him unconscious. For the whole night, his grandmother knelt by Juan's bed, praying to the yellow god, to which is the yellow immortal, which is the weasel. Uh, Now, a quick little side note here, because there's a very clear hierarchy in the five immortals. Only the fox can drive away the weasel, and only the weasel and the fox can drive away the hedgehog, and so on and so on. So this is why she was praying to the weasel to protect her son from the vengeance of the hedgehog. She prayed and prayed, and in the middle of the night, the old lady looked up and saw a large weasel crouched on their windowsill outside the window looking in. And she kept praying, and that weasel never went away until daybreak. And finally, in the morning, the fever broke, and the little boy, Wang, woke up. As soon as he woke up, he told his family about the dream he had. He said he didn't even remember getting sick. He didn't remember the fever. He remembered laying down in bed, falling asleep, and then in his dream, there was this very angry, like ancient hag, dressed all in white. This very angry old hag had a cane in her hand, but it was not a normal cane. The end of the cane was sharp like a spike or the tip of a sword. And he said in his dream, the old hag stabbed him in the chest with her cane, and she said, "You murdered one of my descendants, so now I will take your life for hers." And it was at that point when an old man in yellow robes appeared in his dream, and the old man put his hand on the old woman's cane, stopping it from penetrating too deeply into Huang's chest. The old man said to the old lady, "It's just a kid, and you understand that when kids do things such as he has done, they didn't mean it, and even karma do not punish them. So for you to exact vengeance, it's unjust and it's wrong. And since the family has done right by my family for generations, they've given us food, they've worshipped us, I'm here to ask a favor of you to let this kid live." The old lady in white was very angry, but she looked like she was a little bit afraid of this old man. So she took her cane out of the kid's chest and she said, "Fine, I will let him live, but for the rest of his life he will never taste good fortune again, and the other two will not live." And she walked away. After Huan told his family about this dream, he opened up his nightshirt and they saw a very big bruise right over his heart. There's no puncture, but a big bruise, like someone punched him right over the heart. But he lived. Next week, his friend Kay was drowned in the river, and a couple of months after that, the other friend, Shi, was run over by a truck on the road. Huang was the only one out of the three that survived after killing that hedgehog. But for the rest of his life, he'd never been able to enjoy good fortune. He had nothing but misfortune, bad health, bad relationship, and debts, and bankruptcy, and much, much more. When I read this supposedly true account by Huang, he said he wrote this in hoping that by writing about it, it will appease the hedgehog, and hopefully the hedgehog will forgive him and let him live out the rest of his life in peace. Thank you for checking out today's Wisdom Wednesday. We'll be back again tomorrow for Toy Thursday. For now, have a good night, and don't kill any hedgehog.